to another episode of the Housing Experts Podcast. My name is Tom McGiveron, associate broker with Villa Home, and I am starting a new season. I don't know how to define a season, but I figured, hey, it's November 1st, 2023. Why not start a second season? The first season was 57 episodes, and if you've been listening to the podcast, I appreciate that. This podcast is obviously dedicated to Long Island home values and the real estate industry, real estate market. Today, I want to talk on this first episode of this new season. I want to talk about this lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors, and I'm going to read some off of a Reuters article about it. And I'm not going to get too much into the legal stuff, but I wanted to talk about buyer agency and give information to folks about the differences between a buyer agent and a seller's agent, regardless of what's happening in the news and the rhetoric, this very strong rhetoric from the plaintiff's perspective. These attorneys use language like artificially inflate commissions and things like that. It just, some of it doesn't make any sense. So I want to avoid talking about the legalities of it per se, but I'm just going to talk about how this industry works, and I'm going to do it in less than 22 minutes because that's what I do on the podcast. This is actually also the first podcast that I'm doing where I'm actually recording myself, putting it on YouTube. If you're not following me on YouTube, I am Thomas McGiveron 1. Okay, Thomas McGiveron with the number 1 at the end. I used to have an old YouTube channel. You could probably find it still, but it's out there. But I'm going to start recording my my videos and put my podcasts rather, and putting them on YouTube. All right, I'm going to read a little bit from this article just so you give you some context. All right, so a U.S. jury on Tuesday found the National Association of Realtors, again, this is from Reuters, on some found the National Association of Realtors and some residential brokerages, including units of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. I have to throw that in there, right? Like he's involved. But they're liable to pay $1.78 billion in damages for conspiring to artificially inflate commissions for home sales. Again, I have no idea what that means. Artificially inflates, whatever. The verdict by a federal jury in Kansas City, Missouri, could upend decades of old practices that have allowed real estate agents to boost commissions as home prices and mortgage rates rise, hurting consumers by making housing transactions more expensive. I don't know what planet these people are living. I don't know very much about the Missouri market, but I will say you're going to be hard pressed to find real estate agents right now who are inflating a commission. Okay, that's not happening. What's happening is there's pressure on commissions because there's always pressure on commissions. No matter what market we're in, you could be in a buyer's market and the commission was still something where there was always pressure on it as an industry. Because we're in sales. That's what we do. And so people never want to pay more than what they have to for anything, including houses, including a commission. But in this market, I'm just going to talk about this one. Again, I don't know about Missouri. I could look it up. I probably should have prior to this, but I'm assuming it's a lot like the rest of the country where there is a lack of inventory and homes are selling relatively. If you list a house, it sells relatively quickly with multiple offers, even in an environment where the Federal Reserve has made it more expensive for people to buy and sell houses. That's the real culprit. But let's not go there. Right? They've increased the rates and everything else. And we had a 3% mortgage rate, which was very low. But it went from 3 and as of today, November 1st, 7.88%. They have increased, the mortgage rate has increased a lot. From 3% to 7.8%, essentially 5 percentage points in less than 2 years. And it went from, if you recall, last year, it went from 3 to 6 in like overnight. So we didn't have anything to do with that. That really jacked up. The cost of a mortgage went from like, your average $400,000 mortgage, at 3% was, let's say, principal and interest was like $2,000. I'm using round numbers here. I'm not going over exact. It went from $2,000 to literally over $4,000. The real estate agents didn't do that. Somebody else did, and that's called the Federal Reserve and government and everything else. But let's not go there. Let's just focus on this article. Right now, because homes are sell pretty quickly, the real estate agents, I'm not going in there saying, hey, I'm going to sell your house and I'm going to inflate the price. Okay, we're going to offer this inflated commission to buyer agents. Although that can help because you want a commission is an incentive. So we use it as a marketing tool to get you the most amount of people to see your house. And then we price your home accordingly. And then we subtract what we are going to say, hey, what is the commission? How are we going to incentivize agents who are working with buyers? And I'm going to go over the value of buyer agency. But I want to say this. We're giving them, as part of the marketing of your home, a commission so that they show your house. Right? Because no one's who's going to work for free. We're not doing volunteer work here. We are professionals. We're independent contractors in sales. We're looking to do what? Provide a service and get paid. That's illegal. If you listen to these attorneys, you would think that 1.6 million realtors got in a room, or all these brokerages, thousands of brokerages throughout the country got in a room and then conspired to inflate prices. And that is just not reality. In my opinion, this entire lawsuit, it has one merit to it, which is something against the National Association of Realtors. And it's a stupid thing that the NAR requires of cooperation. It's called cooperation. And they would require agents to list a house. You'd have to offer a commission to another realtor. And then that didn't get really maybe explained well to the consumer. And somewhere in there, okay, that's probably not a good thing. And a lot, believe me, a lot of listing brokers, you get annoyed that NAR is telling you, hey, these are the rules, you have to do this. So there they have some kind of something going on there against NAR, not against the brokerages. There is no artificial inflation. There's not price gouging. Essentially, the defendants denied wrongdoing, with NAR saying there was no evidence agents were required to make offers of compensation at all, let alone at amounts that stabilize, fix, or raise commissions. This whole idea of this lawsuit is just so screwed up. I want to really help you understand it now. Let's talk about the value of what a buyer agent does. Okay, and this should settle a lot of things for a lot of people, especially the people who are out there going, oh, gee, I don't need a buyer's agent anymore. They're inflating prices artificially, whatever that means. If you go to a buyer's agent, they advise and counsel and negotiate on your behalf. If you go directly to a seller's agent, they provide info to the sellers and they represent the seller's interests. If you're working with a buyer's agent, they provide an accurate CMA of home values, meaning, hey, what is the value of this home? If you're working with a seller's agent, right, they're going to provide you, if they say, oh, could you give me some comparisons so I know what, to offer here? They're going to provide you a CMA, what's called a comparative market analysis of the top sales in the area. Because why? Because they're required to represent the interests of the seller. They're going to negotiate as a buyer's agent in the best interest, not of the seller, but of you. And if you go directly to the listing agent, they're negotiating for the highest price for the seller. So those are the top three things. I want that to sink in. I'm going to keep going here, but I really want you to think about these things. The buyer's agent is going to coordinate all the processes to close. They're going to have your back, right? If you go directly to the seller's agent, they're going to coordinate the process to meet the seller's needs. I hope this is sinking in. A buyer's agent, you're going to get all the information you need to know, even if you don't know what you need to know. They're going to be there for you as the buyer representative. If you go directly to the listing agent, they're going to tell the buyer only what they have to in order to get the seller the highest price and the best deal. They have to have what's called fair and honest dealing, and that doesn't change. But if there's information out there that regarding value, they're trying to do what? They're representing the interests of the seller solely. They owe the seller care, confidentiality, loyalty, obedience, accountability, and disclosure. All their fiduciary responsibilities to the seller. So if you're a person out there who's thinking about buying a house and you're like, hey, NAR had this lawsuit, I don't need to use a buyer's agent. I ain't paying their fee. Even if this lawsuit makes buyers have to go into their wallet, which would be horrible, and pay outside the real estate transaction, which doesn't make any sense because of several different reasons that I'm not going to get into because I can't. I want to keep this under 22 minutes. But even if that happens, this list should help you understand what the differences is between going to a listing agent for your information and representation as opposed to using a buyer's agent. When you go to a buyer's agent, they owe you confidential information. When you go to the listing agent, they owe confidentiality to the seller. You tell your listing agent, your buyer's agent, oh man, listen, I'm getting divorced right now and I just need a place to live. Tell that to a buyer's agent. Guess what? The buyer's agent doesn't have to disclose that to the seller. Go to the listing agent. Go and see a house. You make, like, I don't need a buyer's agent. You're talking to them because that's what people do. You talk. And you say, yeah, listen, I'm getting a divorce. I just need this place, whatever. What are they going to do with that information? They're going to disclose it to the seller as part of the negotiations. They disclose all buyer info to the seller. So that's also another thing. Let's see. I want to jump to really. A buyer's agent will call your attention to negative features. Okay, so you're in the house. I do this all the time. I'm representing a buyer. If I see something, I say something. I'm like, oh wow, this. I can tell from 15 years of experience. I'm not a licensed inspector, but I can tell you that this I-beam right here is off or whatever. This is rusted. I see a couple of chipped shingles. Do you think the listing agent is going to go around, even though they owe you fair and honest dealing? They don't owe you fair and honest dealing about a chipped, shingle. They don't. That's not what they need to do. They're there to do what? Think about it. If you're selling your home, do you want your listing agent to go through the whole house and go, wow, this pipe is rusted, that looks brown, that's scratched, this window's cracked, that seal isn't good? No. You're going to take beautiful photos, you're going to sell the house, and that's it. You're not even going to pay attention to those things. But a buyer's agent will. Buyer agent will call your attention to negative features and advise you. The seller agent, go directly to sellers. They're only going to promote the positive features of the home, period. And when you say there's a negative, when you say, oh, wow, the backyard's small, right? What is the listing agent going to say? It's less grass to cut, right? There's some, this room is this house kind of small, isn't it? Hey, it's cozy, right? Cozy. You can create great memories here. Buyer's agent going to say, yeah, it is. In comparison to the other house we just saw and the one before that the other day. Don't forget that. And then the buyer go, oh yeah, that's right. We saw that house. It had more square footage, honey. Yeah, maybe we should do whatever it is. The buyer agent is there to represent your interests. They're going to sit you down. They're going to talk about price, style, condition, location. They're going to talk about your financing. They're going to take you through the process, right? At the end of the day, the number one reason why people work with real estate agents is because they don't want to make a mistake. That's why you hire a real estate agent. Whether you're selling a house or buying a house, you just don't want to make a mistake. You want to be informed. You want to understand what's going on. Buyer's agent is not going anywhere. If you listen to this podcast, I appreciate you listening. If you want to reach me, my name is Thomas. My name is Thomas McGiveron. 631-831-9048. A couple other things too. You can buyer agent will also do what's called a loss run. They can talk to you about insurance history, also the history of the listing and the property. You could find out some of that information online, but primarily, you're not going to know. Again, I go back to this one thing. One of the probably most important things is a buyer's agent is going to get you all the information you need to know, even if you don't know you need it. And let's face it, you're buying a house for the first time, the second time, the third time, the fifth time, sixth time. I've done 500 transactions. You've bought 5 houses in your life. Who do you think has more experience with buying a home? The process. I do. Period. There's no comparison. So there are things that you're after, even 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, 5 houses 6 houses maybe you've sold in your life, moved, whatever. There are things that I know that you don't know. And if I'm helping you buy a house, there are things that I'm going to know and you're not going to even know. And then I'm going to give that to you. A listing agent is never going to do that. They're just going to help you out, help the process, and that's it. So if you're paying attention, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you want me to help you find a house or buy a house, I am a licensed broker associate and a certified buyer representative. Hey, I want to just say I appreciate you watching this podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions you ever have. Feel free to reach out to me. That's my number right there. And I'll see you guys on the next podcast, the next video podcast. I'm super excited to start doing these.